Now the world instruments on GarageBand, why are they there? What is their function? You know, we all think that playing in a band is about drums and bass and guitars and keyboards with maybe some strings and perhaps a horn section, etc. But we've got things on here called the Urhu and the Koto, and what are they for? What do they do? And what place do they have in rock and pop music? Well, you just have to listen to Norwegian Wood by the Beatles. There's a sitar on that record. For many people, it was the first time they'd ever heard a sitar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to record a very, very short backing track, and then I'm going to use the world instruments, but out of their context, and I'm going to talk a bit about them as well. So let's just get a Mr. Drummer. There we go. And open that up. Okay, so Kyle. Well, let's have something fairly simple and soft. Let's ramp the tempo down to perhaps, I don't know, 80 or so. 76. Picks at random. And I'm going to have the key signature of D minor. Because I can. Okay, so I want the hi-hats instead of the toms. Okay, so that's a nice little slow groove. That'll be fine. I'm going to stick some bass down. I'm going to play I'm going to use the P bass sound. I love that. It's very well done as well. I've got a precision that sounds very similar to this. Okay. Okay, so there's my bass guitar. I'm going to put just a very simple keyboard on this. Now, things like the Fender Rhodes do give it a really good sort of mid-range sort of, it's like glue really. I'm going to take the tremolo and the chorus off, and I'm also going to go in and take the echo and the reverb off, take the treble down a bit, so I've got a really dark sounding keyboard with no effects on at all. Okay, one or two little things in there. I'm just going to quantize everything at the moment. Now, I wanted a sort of swing 16th. I was going ding, tick, tick, ding, tick, tick, tick. That's the sort of thing that I was aiming for. So, there we go. Okay, so now I'm going to just put a little bit of guitar on. The reason being that I just want to have that sort of upper mid frequencies in my mix. I just want there to be something there. So let's try acoustic guitar, and I'm going to go to chords this time, and I'm in D minor. So okay. Now, for the sake of the timing, I don't really want to quantize that because I've got the strum. That bring. If I quantize it, it'll make it into a chord instead. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the guitar slightly lower, and I'm also going to put a little bit of stereo chorus on. The reason being is I just want some sort of stereo backdrop. that just makes it sound a bit sort of bit more dreamy and a little bit more sort of engaging. Okay, so there we go. Now I'm going to add one of the world instruments. We've got 4 to choose from. I'm going to go with the Urhu. Now, what is this instrument? Why is it even there? Well, it was introduced to Mongolia in the 10th century. You think, what's it doing on here? It might have something to do with the fact that it was also used by the 9 Inch Nails. And for very good reason, it sounds great. It sounds amazing. Now, the minor pentatonic scale is what I've got it set to at the moment, but it's very similar. It's like a 2-string violin, so you can get notes that are sort of between the notes, as it were. So I could, for example, I could switch it off, the scale. But it does have some sort of chromaticism there. So I'm going to in fact, I'm going to use the blues scale. Yeah, let's really take this thing out of context. Let's take a 10th century Mongolian instrument and transport it into Chicago in the 1960s. Okay, yeah. So. Okay. It's great to experiment with these things because you never know where things are going to go. Fair enough, it's predictable with an acoustic guitar, D minor, you know, it sounds like, you know, just a standard acoustic guitar. And the drums, you know, they're familiar sounding, the bass is familiar sounding, the Fender Rhodes, everyone knows what that is. It's like a 70s electric piano, 60s and 70s. Now I'm going to add something else. Let's have a go at the Koto. Nice. Now this is a Japanese instrument and the scale by default is the Japanese scale. Do check out my program about scales on GarageBand because I do explain those in the sort of context of the piano as well, so that you can see what they all do. But I'm going to change it again to I'm not going to have a blues, I'm going to use the minor pentatonic instead because I don't want to overuse that sharp fourth. And the various ways of playing these instruments are also, you know, synthesized on GarageBand. So I'm going to add something, just a little line to go with what's there already. Okay, one must admit at the moment it's not really falling into any particular musical genre, but it doesn't matter. So I'm going to now just listen to that Koto on its own. There's such dynamic sounds on here. I was just tapping with varying volumes and I'm getting something really nice out of the iPad. It's incredible. Let's see though what happens if I would maybe try a few things, try a few effects. I'm going to maybe stick it through a Overdrive. See what happens with that. So I've taken some of the top end away and I've put a bit of distortion on it. Why not? Perhaps let's take the other effect EQ off and put a phaser on it. One can only imagine what the Beatles would have done if they'd had access to this sort of thing. All these effects and all these weird and wonderful sounds that you could do. We could even start spreading these instruments around. So for example, the acoustic guitar, which is a stringed instrument just like the Koto, maybe could go slightly to the left and stick the Koto on the right and make sure that they're balanced so you don't end up with a level imbalance between your channels. World's your oyster, the Guzheng from China. A slightly different sounding instrument with a very similar sort of, interface to the Japanese one. Let's just have a quick look at the remaining one. I'll just go back here and find, this one. Now, the percussive nature of this could be a nice little line, because we do have plucked instruments, but at the moment, nothing that gives it a bit of a stabby feel. You could even maybe you could take a track like this and you could merge it and then put it into an audio file. Then you could bring it into a guitar amp and put it through loads of guitar effects. Why not? Just merge that one. There we go. Cool. So, let's have a little listen to that. And get a guitar amp. Clean. See what happens with that. See what that sounds like in context. Anything's possible. The possibilities are endless, and one hopes that the world instrument output of GarageBand from Apple will increase, because it's nice to have new sounds, and also making new sounds, things like using the guitar amps, merging that sound and then sticking it through something else. Anything is possible, and anything should be tried just to see what can be done. This is a very good way of making your tunes sound individual. If you've got, fair enough, we're all using the same sounds. There's billions of Apple devices and they've all got GarageBand, they've all got the same sounds on them. But why not have a little play and see if you can make your sound different from the billions of others? It's a brave new world.